What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got some awesome information for you guys. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And we're going to start off with the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, where it actually outsold the PlayStation 5 by more than 17 times the amount. Nintendo has been able to move more stock to Japan than previously heading into the holidays with Black Friday and Christmas. So that's definitely a good thing. And Sony has counteracted and actually confirmed that they were scared or concerned about the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, like I suspected when it comes to the Japan state of play and the price drop that the PlayStation 5 digital edition got. So essentially confirmed what I said in my videos previously at this point, but that price drop has not quite taken hold yet. So we'll see how things are at the next week's Famitsu sales. But if we're looking at it from right here at this point, the Nintendo Switch 2 sold 101,549 units for the past week. This is November 10th, 2025 through November 16th, 2025. So that's pretty good overall. Nintendo's sales, even when you're talking about the first year of a system with the Nintendo Switch 1, they weren't this high if you launch align them. So they're doing better at this point than they did back with the Nintendo Switch 1 in 2017, at least when it comes to Japan. Now, when I said 17 times the amount, it really was that, actually 17 times plus, because the PlayStation 5 only sold around 5,855 units. Now, if you look at the breakdown, though, why I think that the price cut has probably got some people holding back a bit on buying it is because the PlayStation 5 digital edition, out of that 5,800 units, it only sold 489 units, and it usually does a bit better than that. Yes, the physical editions, when it comes to the base PS5, usually does the best in Japan, but the digital edition does a little bit better than this. So Japanese gamers that want a PlayStation 5, I think some did hold back, and we could see a much bigger amount on next week's sales totals. So we'll see about that. But yeah, essentially confirms, like I said, what Sony was doing. They were concerned and a bit scared because the PlayStation 5 has been selling pretty poorly in comparison to the Nintendo Switch 2, and not even just the Nintendo Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch 1 has blown it out as well. Even at this point, at being 8+ years old, the Nintendo Switch 1 still sold multiple times more than the PlayStation 5. Switch 1 sold 22,736 units. So even that right there is pretty bad in comparison, considering Nintendo has kind of moved on to the Nintendo Switch 2. Not fully, because there's still Switch 1 hardware that comes out that can move some units, but it's still 8 years plus old at this point. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see exactly how things kind of go in the future and how Sony combats Nintendo in Japan. But I don't think that Sony's kind of going all in. This is a little bit of a half step. But it also kind of puts to bed the people that were saying that Sony doesn't see Nintendo as competition. The PlayStation 5 isn't in competition with the Nintendo Switch 2. It just kind of destroys all of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have confirmed it themselves. They wouldn't have even worried or bothered about it overall. But I guess the new management feels that no, we can't just concede everything overall in Japan. We got to do something. But I think it's really just more of a fundamental, I would say, software type of thing. Sony, when it comes to their software, they're doing a lot more of the big open world type of games that are more cinematic, or they're doing live service or multiplayer. Those type of games necessarily aren't big sellers and move the needle in Japan overall, whereas Nintendo's kind of doing more smaller releases in some sense, and then also getting games that are going to just be quick pick up and play, stuff like Kirby, for example, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. They've got certain franchises that just help move the needle more in between the big actual AAA titles like the Mario Kart Worlds or the Donkey Kong Bonanzas, Pokemon Legends. They do have a lot of variety that just does a lot better in Japan with the audience. So I don't see PlayStation really making any type of gain on the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan unless they completely change their philosophy. But there's no way that they can, because that would give up what they do in the Western markets, where stuff like Ghost of Yotei or Death Stranding or some of their other big titles are a lot more popular. So I don't see them really changing things up too much from a software standpoint just to help out in Japan. But it is interesting to see kind of what's happening here. I do think that the Nintendo Switch 2 sales are going to continue to rise as Nintendo puts more stock in there, and that's before we even get the next Gen 10 Pokemon and some of the other big heavy hitters that we know are going to be announced at Nintendo Directs in the future. So what do you guys think about this when it comes down to the breakdown of what's happening? I do think that the software sales are pretty much standard at this point. You got the new Momotaro game. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero actually sold more physical units on the Nintendo Switch 2 than it did on the Nintendo Switch 1 in Japan. Hyrule Warriors, Dragon Quest, Pokemon Legends ZA, Mario Kart World, essentially a lot of some of the evergreen-ish type of titles still in the top 10 as well. So what do you guys think about everything here? Let me know in the comment section below. But before we get to the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. Let's go ahead and get into this next topic here, and it's an old friend of Nintendo's coming to the rescue when it comes to the launch of the system and getting some of these free updates out there, something that I do think is actually a pretty pro-consumer move. It's great that Nintendo did that. Not perfect by any means when it comes to some of the stuff before the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 or even after the launch of the system, but I do think that this was one of the best things that people didn't talk about enough. So Panic Button actually revealed that they were the developers behind bringing some of the Switch 1 upgrades to the Switch 2 with the Mario titles and ARMS. So let's go over what they had to say here on Twitter. Panic Button was honored to be selected by Nintendo to help update marquee games from the Nintendo Switch library. Nintendo asked us to help demonstrate new capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2 system while remaining faithful to the original games. Now, essentially with these games, Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and ARMS. All of these games got 4K 60 FPS locked type of updates. Some of them got HD Rumble 2 implementation. Obviously there's maybe some smoothing out of the frame rate, for example, with Bowser's Fury, and of course adapted to the screen, updated and all of that. So this was a great thing that happened for the Nintendo Switch 2, and there were more games than this. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, that also got some updates as well, and I would love to see Nintendo continue on. Now with this here, people have started bringing up all sorts of stuff. In the comment section, people are talking about Xenoblade games and all sorts of other stuff, and I don't think Panic Button would be the developer to bring over the Xenoblade games. I mean, Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X, that would take a lot of updating and a lot of work overall. Those games are massive in scope and scale overall compared to like Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe or something like that. So I don't think that is necessarily possible for Panic Button to do, but I do think that it's possible that Panic Button does more work on other Nintendo Switch 1 games. And some people even ask me, is Panic Button an acquisition that Nintendo could make? And I would think, yeah, absolutely, Panic Button could be an acquisition that Nintendo makes, as they are kind of looking into getting potentially more development software resources. People that can come in and port over titles, have experience making games, HD systems and all that. Panic Button, they were of Doom fame, where they ported over the impossible port with Doom 2016 on the Nintendo Switch 1 back in 2017, where people said this was incredible, that this is running on a portable system. So I do think that Panic Button could be just like Shiver in that sense, to where maybe Nintendo decides that they want to bring them on full time to help out make games and potentially even get third-party games up and going like Shiver did with WWE 2K25 on the Nintendo Switch 2. So we'll see what Panic Button ultimately ends up doing. Right now, they've just been doing a ton of port work between this. They also did Forza Horizon on the PlayStation 5. I think that they're probably doing the Nintendo Switch 2 version of that game as well. So I do think that they've got a lot on their plate, and it's going to be interesting to see what updates Nintendo does next. I think Nintendo might might be dropping them in bunches, and probably like every year, maybe once a year, we get like a bunch of 10 or 12 games like we saw with the beginning of the Nintendo Switch 2. So we'll see what Nintendo does maybe at the next Direct. Maybe they talk about that a little bit more. But what do you guys think about Panic Button and them working on all of these games, updating them for the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, moving on to the next topic here. We've got a release date for Ys 10 Proud Nordics here in the West. Finally, this game launched a bit ago in Japan, but now we have a release date for the West. So Ys 10 Proud Nordics will launch for the PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC via Steam on February 20th, 2026 in the West. Publisher NIS America has announced. Now, Ys 10 Proud Nordics first launched for the Nintendo Switch 2 on July 31st, 2025 in Japan, followed by both Switch 2 and PC via Steam on August 21st, 2025 in Asia. The PlayStation 5 version is due out February 19th, 2026 in Japan. So it's a little bit of like a, I would say, scattered release window over the course of it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. Ys 10, that game came out, Ys 10 Nordics came out, and it was awesome. But then it seemed like pretty much before I could even get started with that, they announced a definitive edition of Ys 10 with Ys 10 Proud Nordics. And they also announced that it's coming to Switch 2, and it's going to support 120 FPS and better resolution and play a lot better and add a bunch of new quality of life adjustments and content to the game. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just not going to play this at this point and wait for the Proud Nordics version of the game. So I'm looking forward to finally getting my hands on this game. It's a pretty cool dual kind of combat RPG where you have two characters that can do a lot of cool different type of mixing attacks and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to playing it. Seems like a perfect game to play hybrid style on the TV, then also portable. It was just funny how fast they pivoted to making a better version of the game. So what do you guys think about the new release trailer here too as well? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, we've got the Kirby Air Riders launch trailer as well as the time that I'm recording this video. This is the launch day, November 20th for Kirby Air Riders on the Nintendo Switch 2. So just going over some more information if you didn't already get enough from all the different directs or anything, or if you want to just know more about the game. Nintendo states that charge, boost, and spin attack your rivals in Kirby Air Riders, a fast-paced vehicle action featuring Kirby and crew. Pick your rider, pick your machine, and mount up for competition. Take on your rivals in frantic arena battles or fast-paced races on the ground and in the air. Use the boost charge button to brake and control your turns as your machine automatically fights for top speed. Fill your boost charge gauge as you drift around the bend and release it to trigger an explosive dash. Choose from a variety of riders like Kirby, Meta Knight, let's go, that's my main, Meta Knight, King Dedede, and Magolor from Kirby's Adventure Wii, and machines including the Warp Star, Wheelie Bike, Chariot, and more. Each machine handles differently, and each rider has their own set of stats and specials. They can also grab copy abilities off their foes to get an edge in the fray. So this game also got reviews. So if you haven't seen my review roundup, you want to know more about how the reviews went, you can check that out. But essentially, pretty good on the reviews. 78 average on Metacritic the last time that I checked. That is multiple points higher than the 61 that the original game got on the Nintendo GameCube. So Kirby Air Ride, that was notoriously panned by so many people. Only 20-something reviews on that one, but still, it was pretty much panned from the GameCube days. But 20 plus years later, the Kirby Air Ride Redemption Tour is here with Kirby Air Riders. This game getting a 78, that's actually pretty good overall. Big improvement compared to the previous game. And I do think that there's just been a change in terms of the sensibilities with a lot of reviewers. People, I think, understand the game a little bit better, but I also think that the game is a lot better than the original GameCube game. I think that they added so many different things to make this an enjoyable experience overall. Now, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea when it comes to the craziness or the chaotic nature, but if you can kind of control it and kind of grasp it and understand the game, I think it gets better and better as you play. And I think that's what I found out when I played the demo, was that the more I played it, the better I got at it, the better you understand how to control your character. And sometimes just having a different character or picking a different one and seeing different combinations can help you really understand and get to grasp with the game better than just by using just Kirby or just using one type of machine. So yeah, awesome stuff overall. I think that Kirby Air Riders is another great Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive to bring to the table to help out in the first number of months of the system's launch, and looking forward to playing a lot of it when it comes to with the community here on PlayerEssence. So what do you guys think about Kirby Air Riders in addition to everything else that we talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.